Welcome, everybody. David Morgan, themorganreport.com. Well, I got a special treat. I've got Cyrus A. Parsa with me today, and we're going to stay on the thread mostly about the cryptocurrency, which I've been diving deeply into, and certainly I need some expertise such as Cyrus. So let me just give you some background, and he can add on to this. He's the founder and CEO of the AI organization, where he's also a director of creative analysis and defense innovations. He's researched and investigated more than 1,000 AI, robotics, 5G, cybernetic, and big tech companies. Now that's a mouthful. Cyrus has a BS in international security, a master's in homeland security, and he lived in a Buddhist Taoist fighting monks in the mountains of China studying, and I'll butcher this, you could correct me, Wudang arts and meditation. He's an expert in AI, quantum, 5G, security, and more importantly, from my perspective, U.S.-China-Iran affairs, and the author of several books. I've read his last book. In the summer of 2019 and early 2020, he predicted and warned accurately in numerous ways that the world's people were in impending danger from a diseased or bioweaponed, we know what we're talking about here, I don't want this censored, from China's CCP that would lead to conflicts, AI enslavement, famines, misuse of biotech, civil wars, death, and world wars. Cyrus provided solutions as a remedy, and we're all about solutions here. Cyrus, welcome aboard. Do you like to add anything to that bio?
No, thank you, David. Hello to your audience, and thank you for having me on.
So I'm going to get very specific, again, having read your books, and it's one of those books that you kind of can use as reference material and go back to. But I've been looking more and more at the cyber currencies. Free market. I think you've watched a few of my videos. If you want to, be a Bitcoin Baptist and that's all you want to invest in, that's fine with me. I think it's outside of the purview as I'm not a certified financial planner, never was. I did work with a certified financial planner for a brief time. The point being is that common sense tells you really don't want to be all in on any investment, all real estate or all gold or all Bitcoin or whatever. But that's beside the point. I'm giving that background to say this, Cyrus, we'll get right to it. I am concerned that there's more to the cryptocurrency meme than most are talking about. So I started to dive in and I thought, man, if I could just get Cyrus to help me out here, I'd be so grateful. So my premise is there is some control behind this whole cryptocurrency thing. Can you dive in and take us on that deep dive?
Yeah, the long-term end goal or end result of the cryptocurrency, in my view, is going to be the enslavement or the end of human freedoms and your autonomy, to have the ability to basically have a journey and make your own life, make your own freedoms, and make your own capital. And let me explain how that is. See, from the perspective of the cryptocurrency people and the Bitcoin people, is that this is not centralized, so the Big Brother and the government can't take your money or your can't be taxed on certain things. But there are multiple risk factors from having cryptocurrency. First of all, you're giving corporations or entities or just people that you don't even know power over certain currency they create. And that can create a chain of reaction that not only offsets and destabilizes your current money structure, which we're still on a paper currency. Maybe 100 years ago, we're completely on the gold standard. We're kind of a hybrid in a sense, right? But if you look at it now, the way it's going, this cryptocurrency can actually cause inflation. It can increase the inflation that we have in our country. It can destabilize multiple currencies around the world. It can destabilize governments to create little proxy governments ruled by corporations. Now, but they're saying, no, it gives you freedom and you can create this, you can create that, and no one's going to know your transaction, but then it'll be watched on a blockchain so that it'll go from one computer to another and there'll be backups. When you look at if you look at the central banking system, you can't really tell, there's all these arguments, but there's more to that. So you mentioned you read my book. This one is the last one I wrote. The Great Reset, how the big tech elites and the world's people, which means you, us, or if you're a big tech elite, can be enslaved by China's CCP or AI. I wrote this in a very, very short manner. It's like a 3-hour read, maybe 4 hours, but it encompasses everything about the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the future of artificial intelligence as it connects to smart cities and cryptocurrency, which includes Bitcoin and everything else. So it's not just about a cryptocurrency. It's about something that connects to artificial intelligence in the future that connects to your smart cities. And what do I mean by smart cities? Currently, you're used to your smartphone. So you look at your smartphone and you get a text, an email, a picture. You can do your banking and so on. It may give you some recommendations. But a smart city, basically your walls can talk to you. You come into a store, it'll recognize your face. Oh, the Morgan report. Okay, we believe the forecast should be this, sir. You're like, what? You should buy this. You never know, it could happen, right? But they'll offer you things to tailored to you. So it's not just when you go on Netflix and it recommends what movies for you to watch. You walk into the store and knows who you are. And they'll say, they'll never do that. Well, it's a private store. They can do whatever they want, but we have all these corporations. You have the metaverse with Facebook. They want to create everything into virtual augmented reality. You see how the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies can connect to augmented and mixed reality, smart cities, and then you bring in drones and you bring in machines. So it is the complete finishing off and elimination of your autonomy that goes back to ancient times of barter and trade with goods and services or things, or the gold standard. You see? So once the system, the internet system, let's say one day goes, or some people get control of it, you have nothing that can back up what you own. So it is the complete destruction and the end of your autonomy currency. In the middle parts, they're saying, no, you have all this autonomy. No, you will not. In the end result, you will not. And how many people are just creating currency and they're billionaires now, or 100 billionaires? And where did that money come from? It wasn't even there. It's for the most part, it's an end goal enslavement of your freedoms.
Yeah, let me stop you there and let's explore a little bit more on we'll take a hypothetical, I guess, but a certain corporate currency, I think you called it. So it reminds me of in my expertise, the mining industry. And you go back in the 1880s to 1920s, somewhere roughly in that time frame. And basically you worked and everything came from the company store. Your housing was from the company, the store where you bought your food was from the company. Basically, the corporation owned you. Now, some people thought that through and others didn't really care that they were, making a living. Yeah, they were basically in the slave camp, but they didn't see it that way because of their thought process. So I want to go a step further with this. And my belief, and you've got a deeper dive on this, that's why you're here, is they're pushing toward this, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. And I think, and this is my take, viewers, let me just stop here. I'm sorry to digress. I'm pretty close to Pat Woods, who wrote, I think, the leading guy on Technocracy. He wrote Technocracy now in his second book. I've read them both. It's been a while. But this Technocracy, which is basically coming from AI and the CCP, and he talks about credit scores, Cyrus. So he's saying that you will get your currency, I don't care which version you use, and I need your help on this, but you get so much carbon credits per month. So you can only drive so far, you can only eat so much meat, you can only watch so many movies, you can only do so many video games, and then you've eaten up your carbon footprint. And after that, I guess you fast for the rest of the month or whatever. So to take me down that, what your thoughts are on that?
You're completely correct. The end goal, when I mean enslavement, it's a planetary system that the cryptocurrency and the Bitcoins, however you want to term it, is going to connect to everything. Also the physical you. So in this book, I talked about a term I coined biodigital social programming. So your perceptions are altered by programming. Biodigital is a little different. So what they're having in the future is certain technologies that could be optional at the moment that you could take and put in your body, and then you wouldn't need a smartphone. You wouldn't need to even have money on you because the currency goes with your body, and that's the cryptocurrency. You see, but that can be shut off anytime. Then you say, then they'll create something else that says, oh no, it'll be mandated by your body, and it'll operate. This is the futuristic thing, but they have patents for this, and they've actually created the technology for it. It's already there. Just yesterday in San Diego, company called Roswell out of Carlsbad. They went public with their discovery that, not exact words, but they were able to create an operating system at the molecular level. Mm. So that means whatever they put in your molecules can track your health, but also it can be programmed a certain way. And then that happens in the future, you can put cryptocurrency in that as well. But in the meantime, what they need for this cryptocurrency to be full sci-fi is to connect everybody with the Internet of Things or Internet of Bodies. So you have the 5G, 6G towers, and you have the smart cities come in. And you mentioned China. China, they're a communist state, but they act like they're capitalists. What they are is a parasitical capitalist system with communist dictatorship ethics or morals, if you can call it. So they say they're capitalist, but only a small percentage of people get power, but they control everybody through force. Force. Then they set up this entire system. When the system's set up, so there's a credit, social credit system. Then you have law enforcement systems. You have education. You have media. You control all of these things. Then when you put in the cryptocurrency, that means you control everybody because you don't have gold at home. You don't have physical anything at home. You don't even have a bank that gave you a physical receipt that you can go to them with. You just have a cryptocurrency. So they can shut that off at any time. They can alter it at any time. But also other things can happen that the cryptocurrency can just disappear. There's so many people nowadays are creating their own, launching their own cryptocurrency. It is almost unlimited. So it's like, by them doing this, what's going to happen to the current markets and current money structure? There's going to be inflation, and then there's going to be collapse of different financial sectors and different type of currencies globally, and that's going to have a ricochet chain of reaction to cause problems in the U.S. and different places because we're all interconnected. The biggest thing is the Chinese Communist Party. I was just since day one. So the past 20 years, they've put people in concentration camps. Well, they've been doing this since the 1940s, right? Since the Communist Party took over. But they put a lot of people in camps, and they've even killed them for their organs. $1 million a body. So the largest people were the Falun Dafa practitioners. They believe in Jen Shanren, truth, compassion, forbearance. The second highest number of people were the Uyghurs, or Tibetans, and the third were the house Christians. Then it got to just if the government doesn't like you, they'll throw you in the camps, and then they can make money off you. They'll kill you for your organs. Then last 2 years ago, when they were taking over Hong Kong, my intel people were telling me that on the ground, Chinese students who were from Hong Kong were being threatened by paramilitary forces who were sent from the Chinese Communist Party to be police officers in Hong Kong. But if you don't comply with our demands, we're going to send you back to the mainland in China, put you in a camp, and take your organs. And they got scared because they know this has been going on for 20 years. So here's the thing. A lot of us, we think that we do business with different countries, it's okay. But what we have been doing is feeding the Chinese regime for 20 years. And they've gotten stronger off that. And they're a tyrannical regime that kills their own people for the organs. That means they don't care about your country. They don't care about us. They don't care about your families. They'll do anything. And they've been taking assets in this country in a smart way, 30% of the time, wherever they go. They take parts from parts, land, ports, banks, or they merge with banks. So you have Bank of America, 50% is owned by China. You think, interesting. Then Bitcoin comes in, then other currencies come in, right? What the Chinese Communist Party is doing is actually buying up cryptocurrencies in other countries. But for their own country, they're doing it in a different way to protect themselves in case there's a fall. So you may have a lot of your followers or some of your viewers have already invested in cryptocurrencies. I concur with you that you shouldn't put everything in there. But I suggest for the very least, I personally myself, I haven't bought any. I haven't done anything like that at all because I don't want to contribute to the end result. But my biggest suggestion is truly, since we were, what happened to the Jews in the 1940s in Germany, what happened to the Christian people in Russia from 1917 and on, all these things were crimes against humanity. And the Mongol invasion, so many things have happened throughout the history, right? Because we're interconnected, we shouldn't be doing business with China until the Communist Party is no longer there, and they outlaw completely and make amends for killing millions of people the past 20 years in concentration camps with our goods being sent there, or at least our expertise sent or stolen in a sense because they've been stealing everything. And us buying made in China. When you buy made in China things and you invest in China, you're actually destroying the future of your family and your kids.
Let me stop you there. Very good. I think you're extremely clear and very insightful, and I'd call you a visionary on where we're going. What I'd like to do is ask you, what is it going to look like this day forward for the two camps? I know I'm making a metaphor. I know it's more complex than this. I'm trying to simplify it to make the thinking very clear. There's those that say, bring it on. I want to be enhanced. I want to put on a headset. I want the virtual world. I don't like the way I look or feel or whatever. I want it. Bring it on. Then you've got people like me that want to resist it as much as possible. So how does that look from this day on? Those of us that say, no way, I want to be human, remain human, and they say, no, if you don't get this enhancement, you're not going to be able to participate in whatever. So how does that, there is this bifurcation that's going on politically, geopolitically, pro-war, anti-war, you name it, and I know how smart you are, but take me specifically on those that want to be enhanced and go with the program and those of us that don't. What happens? How does that go?
This is a very deep and long conversation, but to shorten the answer to a few bits, because it's so much.
Right.
Society can collapse almost an overnight with a few events that cause a chain reaction. As you mentioned, there's so much animosity, fight between the liberal and conservative side. And you can see that simmering within our politicians. So just a few things, like you saw what happened recently on either side or on both sides, that can cause a chain of reaction. Then you have a supply issue, or you have martial law that comes in, right? With that happening, then easily this virtual, augmented, all these different things that people don't want to do will come in a lot faster. Now, if we just back off and, meaning on both sides, right, and just let things go, it's still going that way. Mm-hmm. So you're asking how to solve it. I put out all these information prior to, but I guess it was very hard for people to believe me because it was something is almost an impossibility. So when you put it out and try to do things prior to, prevention is the key. So my master's in Homeland Security, emphasis was prevention and response, disaster. So right now, I think we're in a disaster zone. We're no longer in the prevention zone. The information I put out made 2020 a lot less dangerous and the impact a lot less, because the whole world got my information in terms of AI and CCP, and it just went everywhere. So, but I thank you for having me on. So it lets me break into different communities and sort of provide solutions. If you ask me for solutions, it's very hard for people to really accept this. If you're liberal conservative, but you got to be nice to each other on both. But sometimes if you're too nice, the other side will just take advantage of you, because they're just it's just what they do, right? Right. So you got to be on your guard. But this country is founded on freedoms, on a constitution. If you believe in a God, or if you don't, it says your freedoms are God given. So I think your effort and your heart and everything you do can be put on this. So to be more active. I work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week from 2019 early and all 2020, just to make sure people understand all these things that are coming. So I'm not against the Great Reset. I'm not against the Fourth Industrial Revolution, because there's some benefits to health in terms of diagnosing. In this book, I talk about the benefits. With AI, they can scan your body, if you have an illness coming a lot faster, and so on. And with smart cities, there's certain benefits as well. However, because we're already in a society that there's so much tension, hate, when we bring forth this technology and this Fourth Industrial Revolution, almost the only result that will happen is tyranny, because you have half or a third of the population who are completely opposed to it, and they've been fighting back and forth with the other half. They've been pushing that. So when you get to a level of technology, whoever has control of the technology will see the other side as almost insignificant, even considering them as animals. Oh, you haven't taken this, okay? You haven't complied with this. Okay, you're against the system. You're against the state. You see. So in a Judeo-Christian perspective, they call this the beast system. It's also from the Persian time, the Sumerians, and ancient. They all talked about this. But in current way of talking about it, you can just say an instability and full control of your autonomy by very few people and corporations, and creating an infrastructure of instability that can create chaos, not just for your currency, but that trickles down to every facet of your life. So when a few things go wrong with the money, that trickles down to politics, and vice versa. And that trickles down to infrastructure, food, homes, renting, and education. Then that connects to even human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug overdoses, suicides. Do you see? So that's why a few people at the top, when they fight each other, and they go back and forth, and they won't step back and say, we're all human beings, we have to give ground and work with each other, it goes like that. And if you have a few people that are really greedy and create a money system and that controls everything with smart cities, same thing that happens. Then there could be wars and different things. So my goal of the AI organization, has always been to put forth information and solutions and advisory on behalf of your families and the world's citizens for artificial intelligence to be ushered in a way that humans control it, and that you have freedom and autonomy for your own well-being. So I wish that 100,000 people will get this book and talk about this, and also my story, because I've got so many things right, and I have solutions. If I can get an international platform, I think things will be a lot better. But we're facing food shortages at the moment, and truly, I got on the show to talk about this cryptocurrency, right? So
Right.
yeah, truly the end goal, the end result would be the end of your freedoms with the end result because of the situation we have and the trajectory of society and where it's going.
Yeah, I see it as a Trojan horse quite a bit. I mean, as you started, you stated that, the idea being that it's decentralized finance. You hear all about decentralized, we're making our own bank, screw the bankers, kind of some of the ideas that I have, been a proponent of for years. But when you really analyze it, almost everybody goes through some type of Coinbase where it's a KYC. They know who you are, where you are. Whatever move you make is immutable on the blockchain. They can trace it back if they want to. So for me, it's kind of a Trojan horse. It's like, oh, look, it's decentralized. No, it's anything but. So I want to just leave it at that. Obviously, you can come any way you want. But what I'd like to do is give you the hypothetical. All right, so there's the resistance, as you accurately, in my opinion, outlined, that, as more and more people, by their free will or not, acquiesce to the beast system, there's probably going to be a smaller and smaller amount that resist. Are they going to be like in some of these dystopian movies, like the Hunger Games, where, you're on the outside and you're not in the capital, you're eking out a living, most of your efforts still go to the state, they kind of ignore you, but you don't have any of the quote unquote privileges of the technocratic society you live in, let's say, what life would be like in, let's say, 1900 or whatever. Is that unrealistic? Is that going to happen? What do you think?
That's not unrealistic. It's going that way. It is going that way. Piece by piece, bit by piece. It's just America is a very vast country. It's a very, very big country. And it's very diverse. I don't mean just in race. I mean, it's very diverse in its history from all the Europeans that came here. And people are strong here. Americans, they're the most bravest, strongest people that exist in the world. They really are. Maybe the new generation has been watered down a little bit because of video games and movies and so on. But certainly your generation is, hard knocks. So it's hard. It's a longer process. But if more mandates come in and the conservative side gets crushed more and they say, oh, the two-party system doesn't work, once you have a one-party system, done. Because even if it's still a two-party system, right now it looks like a one-party system if you think about it. I don't see a two-party system. I don't see any difference truly between the actions of the Republican side, the majority, the ones who are in power, versus the liberal side, the Democratic side, because they've been there in power for so long, and it's just it's like a cat and mouse game, but they've merged into almost one entity, in a sense. So yeah, it's going that way, but I think there's a hope for the future. We have to treat others better, and redemption is a great thing. Why not seek redemption and improve ourselves and make society a better place? That's something that needs to be done very, very fast, by the way. And we need power brokers to step up, and I need to support. So you have me on. I really appreciate it because if we don't do something about it, it's even your audience, it'll eventually come to get you. You think you're sitting at your home, you have your your house and your family and so on. Just look at it. Everything is being interconnected. It's going to affect you, even if you're well off. If you don't do anything about it now, it's going to affect you in a big way.
That's right. Sorry.
It's a communist revolution almost. It's like what happened to the bourgeois in France. It happened to the Russians. It happened to the Shah of Iran. So the Shah was trying to make Iran a great place, and the socialist Marxist movement came in, and everybody has been in tyranny. And they complained that there were, capitalists that were abusing capitalism, which is true. It even happens in this country. However, when they try to throw out that system, they've been in misery since then. And you saw all those people killed, 100 million people killed in China, right? So this will happen here. I myself, I turn on hundreds of millions of dollars just so I can make everything public. Because I deal with intelligence, not just artificial intelligence. I also deal with intel relating to China and also all the companies I investigate. So I knew all these things before they happened, even ahead of these big tech guys. Because I predicted the bioweapon because we had intel, I warned of it, and the Great Reset. So what we really need to do at the moment is to help society, because you help society, you help yourself. And it has to do with coordinating, coming together, and not being against anyone. Because I'm really not against the liberals or conservatives. I'm for human beings.
Yeah, I like that. So I'm going to explore maybe one or two more topics. Going back to earlier in our conversation, I have, changed my view totally on, freedom. For me, when I was a kid, financial freedom. So the idea being that if you had enough stuff, enough money, we'll call it money, that you could get to a place where you didn't have to work. So you could start a foundation, you could do volunteer work, you could create your own business, you could vacation away the rest of your life. I mean, it gave you the options to do what you want. And I've said now for quite some time, years, that no longer exists. Because if you look at the monetary system as you've outlined it, doesn't matter how much you have. It's going to be based on your social credit. So China's the lead source there. You might have $1 billion, but if you're spit on the sidewalk or take too many drugs or eat too much or whatever, your social credit score goes down. So it doesn't matter. I mean, there might be a black market where you could buy somebody off, but very little of that. Basically, it's based on what we discussed briefly was the carbon credits. It's like that joke that was on the internet about a decade ago that, somebody calls up Domino's and orders a pizza. And the AI says, you can't have a pizza. And he says, what do you mean? I got the money. And he says, I don't care if you got the money. You had 2 pizzas last week. You're not allowed to buy one now. It's a sort of a joke, but that's definitely a good illustration of where we're going. So I just would like you to revivify what I just said in your own words about there is no financial freedom anymore. Am I right on that?
Yes, but it hasn't manifested yet into your own homes. So I created a sci-fi movie at the height of the pandemic. It's just sci-fi. It makes you understand what 20 years from now looks like, starting from the release of the bioweapon from China. And after I did that, then the movie, the book, The Great Reset came out. It's called AI, The Plan to Invade Humanity. You can rent it from our website on demand. Our website's THEAIorganization.com. And I connected everything to UFOs and aliens in a sci-fi way. But what I mentioned today about the company in San Diego creating that the technology at the molecular level that they can implant in you, the company's called Roswell. What he said in there is exactly what I said last year and the year before, that a lot of our technology is spawned through a chain of reaction from off-world technology and landed here. Now, this is not crazy because I was able to get the Pentagon from the things that I put out, from releasing information that says, yes, they've had off-world technology land on this planet. It's not something that I'm just saying. The Pentagon has verified it. So what's happened is they found these crafts and they were able to reverse engineer certain things. And then the internet and DARPA, although they're public at least the internet, Google, the Republic, all these are spawned from the creativity and the cause and effect from these aircrafts that were landed here either by accident or not. So that sci-fi movie, I did at the height of the pandemic when everything was locked down, and it took me 1 hour to say it, but 6 days to put it together straight. You may want to watch that.
I've watched it. I have to watch it again. I don't remember much of it. I only watched it once, but I did rent it.
Okay, well, yeah. So, we could have a future like that, or at least with the Jetsons, because you gotta understand, these big tech guys, they grew up playing video games. I played video games too. I remember playing Super Tecmo Ball and Mike Tyson's Punch Out. I ran with Walter Payton and Barry Sanders. I enjoyed football. I also played basketball and baseball. But these guys were super, I don't want to use the word nerd, but super into video games. So they're more attached to something that's not from this world than this physical world of loving your families, working hard, having gold in your hand, having a house, having something. So what they want to do is create a virtual world where you just like, you almost don't even have a body. You're just sitting at home, you have something here, and you're like, in your head. That's what they want to do because they've never been happy in their lives.
Right.
Am I a happy person? Half and half. I was not very happy because not too many people supported me in time, right? I got to meet you recently, and then you're like, "Hey, I'll put you on my podcast." And I was like, "Oh, that's great, thank you." Yeah. This is their thinking. So what they want to do is impose this on all 7 billion people, and then what really is going to trigger all that is not just the lockdowns. It's the money. Money is what controls everything. And This is different. It's not gold or paper in your hand. It's digital currencies that can be controlled with 1,000 different ways. So in the past, you'd have horse riders come to your house and they beat you up and they take some gold from you or chop off your head, right? So nowadays, it's getting half and half, but then to the ways, here's a button, you're done. Yeah. Everything's done.
Okay.
That's where it's going. That is where it's going.
Well, that's why I asked you on here, and I think we'll revisit. I just want to continue this series on, maybe I'll call it the dark side of the cryptocurrency market. I mean, a lot have said it. I mean, Mike Maloney and I are pretty close, and he said, and I'm putting words in Mike's mouth, so bear with me, people, but it's a situation that can be very freeing to humanity or very restricting to humanity, depending on how this plays out. So I'm going to go a little bit on the solution side myself, and then I want to give it to you for your take, because I've listened to a lot of your interviews, and I'll wrap it up with what, you can add or subtract, multiply or divide from what I'm about to say. And then we want to, of course, give out your contact points again. And I just want to put it on pause there. We'll call it a day, with the idea being that we have to circle back as things continue down this path. So from my perspective, I've said it many times that we're in a war of good and evil. It's a spiritual battle. Yes, we live in a physical reality. I don't deny that. We've gotten away from what I consider to be true value meaning your family and your head and your heart are connected, where people that you meet, I've been given often the example that the barista that gives you that Starbucks or whatever coffee shop you're in, you take that extra 3 seconds, really look them in the eye and feel from your heart and thank him or her. This is what humanity's about. It's not about how much stuff you can accumulate. I was misguided as a youngster, but I had let's say a real epiphany that got me straight. And I've been on that path ever since. And, as far as I'm concerned, it's easy to say this when you have enough, and I have enough. I'm not a megalomaniac, and I don't have avarice up the kazoo. I've got enough. And enough is, from some perspectives, not that much. Now, from a world perspective, it's quite a bit because I'm an American. I've traveled all over the world. And I know what the rest of the world looks like. I don't make it up. I know. Having said all that, look, it's about being about a real human being and treating others with dignity no matter what. And this has been lost a great deal. So I think that's part of the solution. And the other part is, how far can you be pushed? I mean, there are things in our history, meaning humanity's history, where we are required to do the right thing. It's not really even a choice. It's because you have such high integrity and it crosses what's now that popular red line, which, okay, I'll use that metaphor. And if they cross the red line and you have the integrity that you stated, that's it. The choice is, I'm not working for the company store anymore. It's over. And at least you go out with dignity. Now, I don't want anyone to be a martyr or anything on my behalf, but I am asking them to reach down into their soul and realize this is a war of good and evil and where you stand, because the way it's going and what you outlined, if I understood you correctly, I'm fairly sharp. I think we're going to be pushed more and more and more. And a lot of people that got pushed are going to go over that line and acquiesce and say, well, it's okay, or make up an excuse or rationalize. Remember, rationalizing is telling yourself a lie and believing it. So I think I've said enough, Parsa. I'm very anxious because I've listened to a lot of your interviews because you have a big heart, you've got a big mind, and they both work together. So what do you have to say?
I think you're completely right. There's a point that people can't be pushed anymore. The issue is, before, people lived in certain communities and they can be mobilized in a very easy way. So if there was, let's say, an insurgency, or if your government was being taken over by rogue people, you could physically mobilize to counter that. But currently, if let's say if the government became completely evil, right, and wanted to control people and do bad things, people are so far from each other, right? And how could they mobilize to get them? Because the government is centralized, and even though there's our checks and balances, it seems that those checks and balances are almost merging into a one system. They're kind of getting there because one system is pushing the other party to the brink of the wall or the cliff. So they need to go back to the middle. How do you do that? Well, if there's violence, they have all the cards still on that side, because the government currently, so let's speak in very clear terms. Let's say if on the conservative side, they wanted to take back the country in a physical way. Well, on the liberal side, they control everything, from intelligence agencies, from even the military and so on, right? So, but the liberal side hasn't really done physical things at the moment. It hasn't become a communist country, right? There's been different things. There's been complaints by the conservative side to the liberal about what they've done in a digital sense. You can interpret that however you like. So that's the issue. But here's the thing: all these digital things is what's taking your power away, because we're interdependent on technology, and the technology is being controlled by a few corporations that are completely on the liberal side. So that's the issue. The solution is, it's very simple. I've been saying it since day one. Expose the Chinese, decouple from China, but don't expose China. Expose the Chinese Communist Party. It's very, very important, because that's the root of this evil force. Once you expose that, and then expose the concentration camps, and you bring forth all these people who have been experienced torture, and they know people who have been killed for the organs and so on, then it'll open up people's minds. The liberal conservative sides won't be fighting each other as much. So that's one. Two, redemption and improving ourselves will be kind of each other. Three, I have a lot of ideas, in fact, but I need support. So thank you for having me on your show. What our organization needs is to coordinate with some big people, and I need to advise. If I could advise President Trump directly, but all the things that I said that came true behind the scenes, none of this stuff would happen today. None of it. Absolutely, almost nothing. So what I need is to connect some some important power players. 3, we need support. My story needs to be told, because what this story will do about how we predicted and tried all these things to actually save your families and your freedoms, if that story is told everywhere, it'll add credibility in a certain way. Because not after things happen and those people start talking. It's if you discover the people that did it beforehand, it adds so much credibility. It allows people like me to actually advise in a way it's not hurtful to the left or to the right. So that's what's needed. And 3rd, we need funding. So you like to donate or actually get the book. That helps us, because I'm not getting government contracts, because when I came out to the public to advise and put all this intel before it happened. And imagine if all this stuff hit and it wasn't in your consciousness, and wasn't the president's consciousness, it wasn't in all of these people's consciousness. So it got everywhere. So it's not as bad as you think. In fact, it could have been 1,000 times worse. So we haven't lost America. The country is not lost. There's great hope for the future. But these 3 things I said: expose the CCP with all your might, expose these concentration camps, and seek redemption, and want a beautiful future. You mentioned it's between good and evil. For me personally, I don't want to impose my belief on you, but I believe learn since a little kid. It's not the purpose of being alive is not just to have a good family and be a respectable person in society and accumulate wealth and be happy and so on, and be responsible to your kids. That's not just the only purpose of life. I think the purpose of life is also, if you're a religious person, you can use the word salvation. If you're not a religious person, I think it's to achieve enlightenment or awakening. Because there's a purpose why we're here. There's a purpose why we have misery or we suffer. And there's a purpose why we have to work hard to achieve the things we achieve. And there's beauty. When we work hard for something and we achieve it, there's beauty into that. There's a feeling that you can get nowhere else. So you can follow me on Twitter, on IG, on Telegram at Cyrus A Parsa 1. Again, the website is theaiorganization.com, and there's links to this book there. It's on Amazon. And instead of the guys who are building the book, the infrastructure is promoting their books, I think you should promote my book, because it still brings in the Great Reset, but in a safe way that everyone will be happy with, even the conservative side. You won't be forced to do anything you don't want. It'll be safe. Does that make sense?
All makes sense. And, I didn't want to really end with my note, but I will. You're very, very explicit in the book about the CCP versus the Chinese people. And I think that comes from your big heart and your big perspective. And, I think my belief, maybe naive, is that most people are good and seek that. And I think a lot of people are seeking what their true purpose is. And that's been kind of blotted out in this technocratic mind screw that we've got going, where everything's about, what Big Brother tells you to do and you must obey. And we could go on and on. It's a great place to leave it off. I think everyone should get to the AI organization, get on your mailing list, follow you on Twitter, read The Great Reset or the other book or both. Rent the movie. I'm going to rent it again. I remember I enjoyed watching it. I don't remember much about it. I get a lot of input. But I thank you for your time, your perspective, following this closely, especially on the money side. That's my specialty. And when the whole new monetary idea of free money came out, I was skeptical. And I think my skepticism is going to be proven out as we both outlined today. Cyrus A. Parsa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. And thank you for having me on your show, David.